Hey, this is Dino, and I want to walk you through an example service that I built in .NET using .NET 8.0 that performs um, XSL from within C Sharp and runs in Google Cloud as a Cloud Run service. Okay, so this isn't really rocket science. But I thought this was an interesting combination of capabilities that might illustrate what you can do with .NET services, Cloud Run, and maybe some application integration to stitch things together. So it's not just a minimal web API, it's a minimal web API in C Sharp. It performs XSL transform. That transform itself references a separate C Sharp class. So there's some capability in XSL that allows you to call out to external classes, and I'll demonstrate that as well. That separate C Sharp class uses a business rules engine. So that's also potentially interesting, a business rules engine running in C Sharp. It's all built in the cloud by Google Cloud Build, running as a Cloud Run service. And then towards the end, I'll show you how to invoke it as an integration and trigger that integration with a file upload to Google Cloud Storage. So that covers a lot of ground. I hope this is interesting for people. Here's the background. I began exploring this after speaking with a couple of different companies that were using existing XSL with different engines. XML, XSL is kind of an older technology, still in broad use in the enterprise, and people still need solutions for that. At least one of those companies was using the Microsoft extension script blocks, which allows you to embed, and I'll flip over to the Microsoft documentation, allows you to embed C Sharp logic in your XSL style sheet and then call that logic directly. So this is kind of a code behind thing in XSL, which is handy for people that are committed to the Microsoft ecosystem. It's a little bit going against the grain as far as maintaining code separation. You know, XSL is a different language than C Sharp. I don't feel quite completely happy with maintaining all this code in one module, but I see the utility of it. It's really convenient. Um, with .NET, the thing that runs on multi-platform, including Linux, that feature is not supported, that MS XSL script. So there is a similar thing called an extension object, which allows you to compile a separate C Sharp assembly and reference it. That looks something like this. So it looks very similar in that you have a reference to an external function, but the external code is defined in its own C# module. So it's separately compiled, and it's going to be running somewhere external to the, or defined somewhere external to the uh, style sheet. So this is what I'm showing here in this example is an XSL service that supports that extension object concept, runs in .NET 8.0 in Cloud Run. Let's have a look. I know you guys are interested in looking at the code, so I'm going to bring up my code editor here. This is the repo. And by the way, this is all open source. You can go clone this stuff now and have a look at it. But this is the repo. And here's the program. I'll just show you what it looks like. Um, it's a minimal web API. One important thing is you've got to disable HTTP3 in your .NET app if you want to run it in Cloud Run. That is because Cloud Run does not yet support HTTP3. If you do not do this, you'll see an error on startup. So include that statement. It'll disable HTTP3 for the service. And then I'm not showing any of the web app, the minimal web app here, because that's encapsulated in a separate kind of reusable class, which I'll show you now. So that's in my common uh, directory, and basically it just creates an app via Web Application Create Builder and sets up a get, a post, and some other things. If you look at the post, anytime there's a post to XML, It treats that as an XML document. So it tries to read the XML document and then performs an XSL transform on that document. With what style sheet? Well, that's dependent upon the service. You can see over here on the right hand side, I have that service. This one is just called the Circle service. And I'll show you the style sheet. It looks like this, very simple. It's got this is the call out to that logic that is defined in C#. ext is the XML namespace, and then circumference is the name of the method. And that ext is defined here with this namespace URI. And if I go back into my program, you can see I've registered that here. That's the namespace URI in this style sheet. And this is the object. This is the kind of the instance of the object that gets pickled when the style sheet references that URI. What is that thing? It's just pretty simple. You know, it's just doing the circumference thing. You pass in a number and it computes the circumference of a circle. Obviously, you can do lots of interesting things. This is just an example for showing calculation that's performed out of the style sheet. All right, so back to the service. We are, or the minimal web API, when we get a post to the XML path, then we perform this transform. It's going to use the style sheet that I showed you, and then just send back the transformed XML. And that's that's pretty much it. So so those are the interesting pieces. If I flip over to my repo, I can cd into the directory for that and just run a well. First, I've got some environment things that I might need to set. No, I can just run the build, so I can just run .NET build, and that should compile all the pieces into the minimal web app. Then I can actually run it too with just .NET run. This is all running locally. This is just for demonstration purposes. And then if I want to invoke this, I can do something like I have to say I want the target to be local. So then I'm going to send one data item in and to the local service. So what it's doing is just selecting a random, I have some sample data. It selects a random XML file as input. This is the input. And this is what you can see there's two, I don't know, circle elements here. One that says radius 12, one that says radius 37.5. And then we go through the transform and we print out updated circle elements with the original radius and then the computed circumference is coming from the C# object. And that's this service, which is running locally, is returning that. So if I send another one, it'll pick up a different random XML file and send it in, and we'll get a different result back. Okay, so what are you seeing? It's just a C# app running in .NET, doing XSLT as a minimal web app. Okay, so nothing really rocket sciencey about that. I've got three different examples. That one is just performs a calculation of a circle's circumference based on the radius, so just some arithmetic or geometry. There's another one very similar in structure, which kind of shows you how claims processing might work. This is a really simple claims processor, so it's a very similar program. It looks the same. We disable the HTTP3. The style sheet is different. So the style sheet at this point is going to be a little more elaborate. It still has the extension. It's got that extension, and it has a thing called an invocation called process claim. Okay, so where is that satisfied? Well, let's have a look. When we register the web app, we're setting this extension to be that object, which is what? That's a claims processor. So let's look at the claims processor. and you can see this is just another C# class, and it picks up the claim, including the procedure code, the amount, the patient ID, and then it can perform some logic on that and determine, whether we should approve this or reject it or whatnot. And I just put some logic in there, some sample logic. That's obviously not really what you're going to do in an enterprise system, but I just wanted to show you what it would look like. Now, the return on this is not a simple quantity, is not a simple type. So it needs to be an XPath node iterator. Basically, it's a node set that is going to be embedded into that style sheet over here. So it's going to be, returning not just a number or simple string, but a node set, and that'll all be formatted into the resulting output XML document. All right, so that's the claims processor. It works the same as that circle service, and we can compile that one too. Claim simple. It works the same way. .NET build and run, and we'll be able to do the same thing with that one. So nothing really exotic. We'll send another one that's a claims from that directory, and you can see it picked up a random claim XML, and it sent back and it said, oh, the logic went through and this one was approved for whatever reason. This one said something similar, and we can kind of run through this. This one said, oh, we did not approve that one because it exceeds the amount, and so on. It's just a simple illustration. All right, so that's claims simple. And there's a third example which does something maybe a little bit more exotic. This is claims processing with business rules. So this one also uses a claims processor, and in this case, it's running a business rules engine, which loads its rules externally. So you can see it just kind of pops up this rules engine. It applies the rules engine to the claim that's being processed, and then returns the node set, as we saw in the other example. The business rules engine is Microsoft Business Rules Engine, which is on GitHub. This one, JSON-based rules engine. So it's also open source, and the rules can kind of look like this. And basically, I just implemented that here by pulling in that library and then just implementing it here. So what we have is the style sheet, which is very similar to the one we saw before. It's just got this process claim invocation. It's calling out to the thing that is going to be registered at this XML namespace. And the thing that is being registered is this claims processor class, which uses the business rules engine that I just showed you. Where are the business rules? The business rules are codified here. So it's just a little bit more of an elaborate example of a style sheet calling into a C# object that's doing some business rules processing. Again, it's all just .NET, nothing really exotic. And we can build that too. So that's going to be .NET build, and it'll work the same way. It looks exactly the same way as that simple claims processing thing. It's just the claims processing is done by a business rules engine. So I can prove it to you if I want. I'll do the .NET run and send in a claim, and sure enough, it comes back with a result, and I can do that lots of times. Okay, so 3 services. I built and ran them all locally. But what I would like to do now is show you how it's really easy to deploy these things to Cloud Run. To do that, we first need to set some environment variables that are going to set the GCP project, the region, and then there's some other things that we're going to use a little bit later. The service root is important. If you're doing this yourself, you probably want to make sure you set these to something applicable to you and the email address. The rest of these can all be, they're probably fine as they are. They're just names and root names of assets that get created in Google Cloud project. So you need a Google Cloud project, and you'll set that up all in the environment. Okay, so let's run through that now. What I want to do is flip back over to my terminal down here, and I'm going to source my environment, which I stored there, and then I'm going to just build and deploy the Circle service. So this is a script that is doing a little bit of housekeeping, and then it's going to call the gcloud command to deploy a service. So let me kind of walk you through that. It's gcloud run deploy. I'll Google for that, and this is the reference information on this command. Gcloud is a command line tool for Google. You can do lots of different things. One of the things you can do is deploy Cloud Run things. So basically that's what it's doing, except it's not deploying from an image that is in a repository. It's deploying from source, which is the .NET source code just running locally. So what we see here is it's looking for a service account, doesn't see it, so it's going to create the service account. Then it looks for a Google Cloud Storage bucket. It needs that. That's the configuration bucket that the Cloud Run service is going to use. It's going to read data, configuration data out of that bucket. So because it needs a file system. So if you wanted to say update the configuration for it, you can update the file in the storage bucket, and the Cloud Run container will just read from there. Including things like the style sheet itself gets copied up to that storage bucket. So that's what this script is doing, just sort of automated. You could do this all manually by clicking through the user interface for creating cloud storage buckets. So you can go in there and look at all your buckets and create a new one and go through all those steps. This is just sort of automating it. This is the one, that we just created. These are the data items that are just getting copied up there. And then there are other things too that are happening. The build is happening. A cloud build is happening with that the .NET service, the XSLT service that was built in the cloud. And then we stood up the XSLT service, which I think should be fresh now. That's going to be a new instance that we just created. Yeah, there it is. This one. So just now, it was just built, and we can see it's deployed, it's running, it's available at that endpoint. All right. So back to our terminal. So this completed, and at this point, I'm going to refer you back to the README for this repo. Once you do that, you can then send a request in to that remote service. So let me just copy that command, and we'll clear this, and I'll send a request in to the remote service now, not the local one. What it's doing is inquiring what's the endpoint for that remote service, and then it's, again, selecting just a random file and sending it up. And you're seeing it's coming from the Google service. This is the name of the service. I just put a header into the response to show you, and that's the instance. And if we run this, more times, it's going to send up to Google Cloud and do that circumference calculation. All right. So similar with the local runs, we can also do that with the claims processing. So I'll do that for the simple claims processor service. In this case, it's going to look for the service account and the bucket and all that, and all of that has already been created, so this will be a little faster. It does still have to build in the cloud, so that's going to take a few seconds to run that build, to stand that up in the cloud. And then next, we'll run the other one as well, the one with the business rules. We'll deploy that as well. Which just shows you that you can run these .NET services in Cloud Run really easily, and you can mount a Google Cloud Storage bucket as a file system so that they can read and write to that. Even though Cloud Run might scale down to 0, you can still have that file system that is stored externally that would support, logging or pulling configuration information and so on. All right, so after we do all that, I think the next interesting thing that we might want to look at is to be able to stitch together services in a coherent sequence. Google Cloud Application Integration is an integration platform as a service that fulfills that purpose. One of the things that it can do is invoke REST services. It can also connect to lots of different apps, off-the-shelf apps. There are connectors for SAP and Salesforce and Jira and ServiceNow and Zendesk and Workday and a whole bunch of things, as well as all the kind of built-in Google Cloud services like Google Cloud Storage or BigQuery, AlloyDB, and so on. This is a relatively simple integration. This is an image. In the integration that I'm going to show you, it gets triggered by a pub sub system, a pub sub topic in Google Cloud that will get a message when there's a file that is uploaded to Google Cloud Storage. All right, so that could be as a result of an SFTP transfer or some other way that you drop a file in there. Once that happens, this integration will get triggered. It can read the file, determine the file type. If it's not an XML file, there's nothing really to do. But if it's an XML file that's been dropped, then we can go retrieve the XML file from storage, extract the content, look at the first node, decide whether it's a circle or an insurance claim or something else. And based on that, we can select different target URIs, call a service, and then do something with the result. So this is kind of the process that I'm going through with this integration, just to illustrate how you would connect in a Cloud Run service into integration. And all of that is going to be something that we can automatically deploy as well. So let's flip back to the terminal. So this one is the simple claims. We're going to do the claims with rules too. We're going to have them all running up in Cloud Run. While that's running, I'm going to flip over to my my console. So I already showed you the circle service, this claim simple. We also just stood up just a minute ago, and now I'm deploying the final one, the claims processor that uses the business rules engine, all in C#. That's going up to Google Cloud Run as well. Okay, just flipping back to my terminal, I can see that the claims with rules service is now deployed as well. And what I want to do is now set up the integration that I just showed you. So the first thing we need to do is check and maybe create a GCS connector. This script is going to check in my project. I already have a GCS connector, so there's no need to make one. And we're going to be happy with just using the Google Cloud Storage connector that already exists. Okay, so the next step is to set up that integration, that XML handler integration. And that is also something that we can automate. This is kind of stuff that you can do manually by yourself. But you may want to automate these things for whatever CI/CD purposes or some other reason. So I want to go to integration now. And I've got a whole bunch of these different integrations illustrating different things. This one is the one that we just started deploying with the script. It's all done. So basically what it did was it just created another bucket. That's the drop zone for me to upload XML files, and then imported an integration from the repo that we cloned. Made sure that there was the right roles on the service account, and then published that integration. So this is what the result of that was. This is the integration, sort of laid out a little bit differently, but you can see it's basically the same as that picture that I showed you. And now this is listening on the pub subtopic, and it will get triggered. So let's see this one work. If I flip back over to the README, it'll tell me how I can get this to work. I could just upload a file to that GCS bucket, which kicks off everything. So let's try that. We'll just upload one file. It picks this claim file, which then uploads it to Google Cloud Storage, which will be, there's the config, which I showed you a little bit earlier. That's for the services to read their configuration. This is the bucket that contains the new claim that I just uploaded just a moment ago. And this this one is the integration that we just populated. If I go click that one button here, I can see logs for this integration. And I sent up one file, and you can see I've got a log of all of the steps that occurred, that were executed, and the status of those. If any of these were to fail, you would see that. So basically, it retrieves it gets triggered by the pub subtopic, looks at the contents of that pub subtopic, the message there, retrieves the uploaded file via the Google Cloud Storage connector, examines the XML content, which looks like this, looks like that. That's the XML content that was uploaded, and then routes it to a particular service and calls that REST endpoint. In this case, we're going to call that claims with rules endpoint, and get the resulting response back, which looks like this. So the claims processor, the XSLT engine, they relied on the claims processor with the business rules, ranked this one as approved. So we got this claim approved, and then we got that sent back to me in email. So that is pretty much a wrap. What did I show you today? I showed you C# code built on .NET 8, implemented in running in Linux. It's a minimal web API, a microservice running in Cloud Run. It performs XSLT using the .NET XslCompileTransform class. That in itself uses the extension objects, which in some cases uses a business rules engine to process a claim. It's all built in Cloud Build, and it runs as a Cloud Run service. You can invoke it by an integration, which is triggered by a file upload. All really neat stuff. What this shows is a good platform. Google Cloud is a good platform for people if you're familiar with, comfortable with .NET, with XML, XSL, you like the extension object idea. All of that is possible in Google Cloud. And beyond that, you've got this nice integration platform as a service that you can use to stitch together that kind of service along with other services, maybe services that you bought off the shelf, maybe third-party services, SaaS offerings, and so on. This is all open source too. You can try it yourself in your own project. I showed you some of the setup scripts. You can explore the Cloud Console on your own to see all the assets that get created. And you can tear down everything that got created just by running these scripts. It'll just remove all those assets that it configured. Encourage you to explore this, check it out. And I hope this triggers some interesting exploration on your side for how you might be able to exploit Google Cloud, and stick with your kind of tried, trusted technologies like .NET, C#, XSL, XML. All that is supported very well in Google Cloud with Cloud Run and application integration. All right, that's all I've got. Till next time, keep it digital.